All right, we are calling the meeting to order. We're going to do introductions, starting to my left.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Patterson, and I am an Alliance seat member.
Good afternoon, Kathy Thomas, Alliance seat member.
AJ Derwin, Northwest Council seat member.
Ulam Teklab, East District Council seat.
Larry Knox, Northeast Council seat.
William Clark, Mayor's appointee.
Yvonne Wilson, South Council seat.
All right, so our first order of business here is approving the meeting minutes from the prior board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second? All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Appears to be unanimous. The minutes are approved. All right, now we can move to our executive director's report.
Good evening. It's great to see everyone on this wonderful sunny August day. So certainly good evening to our chair and vice chair, our board members, and members of the public and the community. I am pleased to present my executive director's report for July 2026. You have several reports that are in front of you that highlight another productive month for the Police Accountability Board, and for the public, all of those reports are available online. In July 2026, the Police Accountability Board received 8 complaints from community members concerning the practices of the Rochester Police Department, RPD. Each complaint received by the PAB is categorized based on the nature of the allegations that are presented by the complainant. In July 2026, the complaints were distributed relatively evenly among the categories of abuse of authority of 3, wrongful arrest of 2, use of force, search and seizure of 3, discourtesy 2, and failure to act 3. With that, I'd like to focus on several accomplishments that demonstrate not only what we accomplished, but why those accomplishments matter. The most significant milestone this month was that the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement's unanimous approval of the New York State Civilian Oversight Consortium as its very first statewide affiliate pilot. This is an historic achievement. For the first time, civilian oversight agencies across New York will have a formal structure to collaborate, will be able to share best practices, participate in professional development, and certainly learn from one another. I am honored that Rochester was asked to help lead this effort. It reflects the professionalism of our board, the dedication of our staff, and our shared commitment to strengthening civilian oversight throughout the state. While this recognition is significant, we recognize that our primary responsibility remains serving the residents of Rochester, New York. During July, the board continued implementation of our policing and community surveillance, your right to privacy proposal for change. We received the additional responses from the chief, David Smith, regarding our recommendations, and continued updating our policy recommendation tracker so the public can follow implementation progress. This is important for transparency purposes. Accountability is strengthened not only by making recommendations, but certainly by monitoring the progress over time. Community engagement also remained a central focus. During the month of July, staff participated in 18 community engagement activities, engaging more than 1,300 residents through presentations, neighborhood events, outreach events, and collaborative partnerships. Every conversation helps the Police Accountability Board to strengthen public understanding of our work and helps ensure that the community voices continue informing our priorities. Our Policy and Oversight Division also continued advancing important initiatives that are cross-divisional, including the implementation of What's the Story framework and research into emerging issues such as evolving surveillance and things that are happening in our community. Certainly, as policing changes, civilian oversight must remain informed and prepared to address the challenges and opportunities that are created with the current community. And we know, I meant to start at the beginning, if we could just take a moment of silence for all the loss that we've experienced over the past few days, from the 2-year-old, broke my heart, the 14-year-old, 35-year-old, those who were killed, those who were maimed. If we could just take a moment of silence, because it's been a rough several days. Thank you. I also would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to recognize our incredible staff, as this year has been a year of tremendous change for our agency. Although recent court decisions have limited our board's independent investigatory authority, our mission has not changed. I think it's important to remind everyone that while independent investigations are certainly an important component of civilian oversight, they are not the entirety of civilian oversight. Oversight also includes important elements such as policy analysis, identifying systemic trends, public education, community engagement, data analysis, monitoring implementation of reforms, and advancing recommendations that improve policing. Those responsibilities remain firmly within our charter, and they continue to guide our work each and every day. I am especially proud of how our staff have responded during this period of transitioning. Operating with a much leaner agency has required flexibility, collaboration, and a willing to step beyond some of the traditional job responsibilities. Team members have embraced cross-functional roles, supported one another across divisions, and continued delivering meaningful work for our community, particularly important. We continue to await guidance from the city's Corporation Council regarding the board's continued access to Rochester Police Department data. Access to reliable data is essential to identifying trends, conducting policy analysis, producing evidence-informed recommendations, and fulfilling our charter responsibilities. We remain hopeful that the forthcoming guidance will support our continued ability to carry out this important work. And as soon as you to our chair, our vice chair, and the board, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? What's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I got it. I don't believe we should ever go without at least one question, so I'll do one. I think we have 5 years of asking questions. I don't want to start without one. I had a question about the, I guess a concern, not within, but just, within with the community. When you're out at these events, obviously we still don't have our disciplinary power. We're working through, or our investigative power, let alone disciplinary power. And I'm just wondering, have we had a sense of concern, or is there any thought, and we've mentioned this before, of the members of the community who put complaints in or think about putting complaints in and wondering how we can be responsive to them? So I'm just wondering, are you hearing anything, or is that coming up in conversation when you're doing the community events? Because I want to make sure as we're advocating to get back what we had or more, that we can clearly say, you know, folks have had complaints and or people that are thinking of doing complaints, you know, have a concern and want to see X action or Y action.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, excuse me. So actually, many of our community engagement specialists, when they go out, they often hear that people are talking to them about how they lost the investigatory powers, and then saying that we're excited that hopefully that you will get it back, and how can we support you in that way. But we don't have anyone really
Public affairs and community engagement, what from you all as board members, I think is just going to continue to be helpful. Just getting the information out and making sure that individuals in our community understand what we can do and how they can support those efforts.
Now that Larry asked the question, I need to follow up with the. What I'd like to really understand is, I know that in Syracuse, their council went against the mayor and indicated that we want our accountability board to have the investigative powers. Has there been any? We've shared that article with our city council, right? Or have we?
Thought I did that when it was shared by board member Knox, but I'll go back and look. I thought I did.
Oh, okay. Have you had any contact with them or any follow-up as to how they were able to get that to happen?
I have reached out, and I just reached out to Larry again today or yesterday saying if you have an additional contact, we really want to meet with them. They just haven't, unfortunately, responded to our emails. But I would love to have a conversation with them, with Kevin, to just see where they are, how we might be able to help. I mean, that's the purpose of the New York State Civilian Oversight Consortium, is to help the different agencies across the state and provide support.
I got a question also. So I heard that we're engaging the community in letting them know what's going on. I guess my question is, I know we're doing Facebook and we're doing the town meetings, but has anybody ever thought about engaging the community? I don't know if we got to knock on the door, give them a survey, to find out what they actually think about the PAB board now, and then try to give them the correct information so that it would encourage them, okay, to support the PAB board.
That isn't if you're suggesting the knocking on the doors, we have not done that yet. Oh, we have? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you have? What doors
yeah,
you knocked on?
that's actually our partnership with the Urban League. And we go out and we walk neighborhoods. We do this bi-weekly, and we go tackle different neighborhoods across the city. And we knock on the doors and we talk to them, introduce them to the PAB if they've never heard about the agency, or we talk to them about any concerns they may have. We actually received 2 complaints on the doors that way. So it's been fruitful for us, and we plan on continuing it this summer. But we start in June, and we go all the way through October with the Urban League.
Okay, so I guess the board didn't know anything about that. That's why I'm asking the question.
Okay, we did mention it last time, and I think there was one question about it. But yeah, I can send you more information if needed.
Okay, so you're taking surveys, though. You're just not doing. Are you giving out their surveys, asking them, a survey?
Yes,
Asking them
we
what it is that they
keep
expect from us, and will they also continue to support us? What do they need? That was basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, we always collect data.
Okay.
Anytime we're out, we're collecting data.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a few things to mention, some of in response to what we just heard. Let me start with responding to Bill's comment about Syracuse. I just want to mention, I'm not sure if everyone heard, I was actually going to talk about this in my chairperson's report, but now is as good a time as any. There has been another update today on that story where the Civilian Review Board in Syracuse has said they are not going to start doing those investigations again unless City Council agrees to indemnify the board from any lawsuit that may come. So this is a developing story, and I think it's worth paying attention to. And not only that, it connects to some of the stuff we're going to be talking about later related to legislative affairs. We know that the legislation we're thinking about pursuing is not just about Rochester. certainly Rochester would be greatly affected, but other cities, as we're seeing across the state, care about this too, particularly in and yep, yep, okay, and thanks Larry for pointing out the story originally. Helpful to have a lot of eyes on these issues because they develop quickly and they're all over the state. So if people do encounter news stories about things happening in other localities, please let us know because we want to follow these things.
Hey, AJ, I got a question about that too, because I'm curious. Okay, we are Rochester PAB board, correct?
Yes.
So I guess my question is, the other stories, right? How's that actually going to help Rochester PAB board with our getting our powers?
Yes, so again, I was going to talk about that in the Legislative Affairs Committee piece of things, but just in brief, they want the same law to be passed at the state level that we want passed because it will allow them to exercise their powers the same way we want to exercise our powers. So they support the legislation that we are advocating for.
I have one also. I think last week there was a serious shooting in Madison, Wisconsin, and I heard from a colleague of mine from seminary who said that the community is very distressed and they have nothing in place because they have to basically deal with the police in the investigation. And there is a video of the attack, and one person was shot and killed. And so I think when we're talking about stories and how it could impact what we're doing here in Rochester is to understand that there is this groundswell of police oversight. People are starting to understand that it's very important, and I shared with my friend that hopefully they were wearing body-worn cameras and that there will be some clarification as to what actually happened. But in the meantime, I would suggest that you start talking with the City Council of Madison, which is a university town, so it's not just some little podunk town in the middle of the Midwest, about what can be done. And I think we can, in some cases, as part of public policy and public affairs and community engagement, might, when we hear these stories, reach out to them and say, we've heard about what's going on with you, and if we can offer any assistance, because we are in the vanguard of police oversight, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know of any other municipality that has done as much in this area as we have. Unfortunately, and that's for another story, is the understanding of how a union can thwart the will of the people. This is legislation. And for the Locust Club to come in and say, no, we don't agree with you, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that you can't do any investigations, that if there are investigations, we lead them. Of course, we know that that's a problem with neutrality, that there may not be above board and fair assessment of the situation.
Thank you. Okay, one other thing I wanted to talk about related to community engagement. We're going out, we're meeting with people, and if I'm hearing this correctly, people are expressing that they're sort of concerned or just feel badly about the limitations on our powers. Is that accurate? Is that fair? Okay. I'm wondering if there might be an opportunity there to get like something that they sign on to that says they support the PAB's powers. Like a postcard or something when we're going out and engaging with the community. Something we can start collecting to bring with us when we meet with legislative officials to say the community cares about this issue. In fact, this is actually related to one of the things that the community did when we were campaigning to get the PAB established, is we got postcards from a bunch of people around the community saying they care about police accountability issues, they wanted the PAB passed. And then we brought them here to these very chambers and showed them to City Council to say how important this was. I think if we could do something similar related to our powers and show that to the state legislators, I think they might be impressed with that as well. So something worth thinking about. Okay, and then one other thing I wanted to mention related to the coloring book. That thank you so much for sharing that with us. And when I was looking at it, it seemed like that it's it's sort of appropriate for obviously a younger audience. I want to say like kindergarten, first grade, that sort of level. I think it might be worth thinking about. I'm sure that maybe there are already plans to do this, but it might be worth thinking about how do we tailor messaging in this sort of community education process to different ages, right? So we have you have a comment on that?
I'm not going to give too much away, but we do have something in the works with teen empowerment, and our first meeting is tomorrow. So we are working to get the older generation involved too.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's obviously it's worth thinking about so there's obviously there's a lot of room in between high school age teenagers or whatever and kindergarten, first grade. What makes sense? What is the appropriate kind of messaging at different age ranges? I think is something worth thinking about. It sounds like you already have been thinking about that, but I appreciate those efforts and continue. That's all I had to say.
Well, I just want to say I heard what you said, but how would you be giving too much away?
So before a project is solidified, I don't like to give details. I would like to have the project solid before I present
Okay, so
that.
it's not solidified yet.
It's a meeting tomorrow that we have on the books, and we'll be meeting with them. They're aware of our topic, and we'll be getting into it. And hopefully there will be an update at the next board meeting.
Hopefully, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that concludes questions related to the executive director's report. Should we move to divisional updates?
The update that we have, I covered a lot of the divisions, so I think Kevin might just have a few things that he would like to update you relative to legislative affairs and possibly case management.
First thing that I wanted to say with regard to the first question that was asked by Board Member Knox about the feeling and temperature out in the community with regard to the PAB and their powers. We're a couple people short this week in case management for various reasons. So I've been checking the phone to see if there's any complaints coming in, and we did get a few, but 2 phone calls were people wanting to know what's going on with their complaints. So we don't have the best response for that because we can't investigate. So we are developing a script for that, but people are looking and desiring to have their allegations of misconduct investigated. That's the main reason why complaints are coming in, so I just wanted to bring that as part of that conversation as well. With regard,
Kevin, I had a question on that. Just on that, I think, and I know we brought this up earlier in the year as a potential idea, but I think certainly you have people calling in and they took the initiative to call in.
correct.
A lot of folks are just too busy, aren't going to think, or have maybe just going to happen when it happens. But I think it might be a good and affirmative idea, and this one also will help getting people engaged around us. If there was a letter that went out to everybody who has a case that's sitting in the databases that isn't being investigated with an update. I mean, obviously as city employees, we can't, or you can't lobby your own government to do something, but we can give an update, or the board can ask that we'd like for an update to go to everybody who has a complaint saying, just so you know, here's where it's at, here's some things we're looking, whatever you come up with, but that might, at least people will know that we haven't forgotten about them, and also that might just generate some more, engagement from the folks that have complaints sitting there that we haven't, had direct conversations with in a while.
True, and we do send out correspondence with the beginning of complaints and such like that explain our limitations and what we can and can't do. I think something at this particular point to follow up might not be a bad idea as well. So that's a good suggestion. Thank you. I did include a report with regard to what I'm calling now case management and legal affairs. I think it's more important that we be inclusive with regard to that. But as an overview, during the month, case management and legal affairs has continued to support the PAB in its mission of providing independent civilian oversight of law enforcement. Some of the things that we concentrated on with regard to case management was processing the complaints. We've completely cleared up all of our backlog of complaints that we had. Everything is over to RPD that we've had. We continue to maintain our files and our case tracking, and we're always trying to find ways to improve that. We've also been developing a process with regard when the case manager is not there of who's going to cover this and how and whatever training and support people might need with regard to that. We're always investigating different ideas and ways that we can learn and apply our authority with regard to Article 18 of the Charter. We've, and I think you're going to touch on that, we've had our Legislative Affairs Committee first meeting, which was an organizational meeting. We've come up with a form with regard to nominations that we would consider that we would vet and then have put before the full board for a vote. You saw the coloring book. We made sure that that was good general advice to provide to people with regard to the issues coming in there. What I would say that's a very important thing for us to address as I'm looking at priorities moving forward would be addressing the board's authority to access information necessary for the board to conduct its charter-assigned obligations and duties with regard to reporting and providing information to our complainants and to the public that are things that are required by the Charter that have not been affected by any litigation so far. We've talked about that during the Executive Director's report. We remain focused on the job and the tasks at hand, and we understand our limitations and responsibilities, but we continue to move forward to ensure that we are meeting our obligations and the requirements under the Charter. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I did include I think it's in your packet today, the monthly report activities for case management and legal affairs. If you have any questions, you let me know. If you can, if there's something that comes up after the meeting, you can get in touch with me easily. Thank you.
All right. Briefly, regarding the messaging to complainants that have brought complaints to us and sort of responding when they're asking for the status of their complaint, a few things that I think might be worth including in that messaging that maybe you already have, maybe you're already planning to do this, but just thought I'd mention it. I think we should certainly mention that these complaints were referred to RPD for further investigation, and preferably the date when they were referred to RPD,
Okay.
so that the complainant is aware of when RPD should have received it, so that gives them a sense of the timeline. I think it should also mention how the policy work we can do with respect to their complaint, and that we can still work on evaluating systemic patterns, practices, policies, and procedures, and their complaint can be part of that analysis of broader trends.
We do have
And
that.
further, we can even mention we're fighting to get the power to investigate these complaints back. While we don't have it right now, we're still trying to get it back. And if they support our efforts to reestablish that power, we could either encourage them to reach out to their elected officials, or we could even ask them to fill out one of those same postcards I was mentioning earlier where they're asking for the PAB's powers to be restored. A few things that might be worth including.
Those are good suggestions.
I just want to add something also. Back when we lost our investigative powers in 2025, we did send letters out to every report that was submitted, and it did mention policy and oversight in those letters.
Thank you. Yeah, I assume that were the case. I think people can forget sometimes, and as we're seeing, I guess we're getting phone calls from people asking about it. So that's the only reason I mentioned it, but thank you. Okay. Anything else on legal division?
Since we haven't gotten to the zip codes yet, right? The thing about the zip codes and the complaints, we haven't gotten there yet, right?
Can you clarify the question for me?
On page 12 of the case management thing, we haven't done that yet. That's coming up.
No, that's in the document, but we weren't going over every single thing. So if you have a question, we can certainly.
Well, I do have a question because I don't see 14619 on the paper. So that's why I was asking, we don't engage with them or anything like that? Like the 19th Ward, the zip code 14619. I don't see anything on here about any complaints or anything else. So that's why I'm asking.
Are you referring to the complaints?
On page 12, right, it says, after case management, complaints by category, yes. That's what I'm talking about, complaint category.
So that just means a complaint didn't come from that area.
Right, so I'm saying we don't get no complaints at all from 14619.
We do, just during this reporting time period, we did not.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I just want to say, as a reminder, your counterpart, Jason Monroe, is a specialist for that area, and he definitely is over there.
I guess he needs to be up in here at the end of the day, right?
And just to be clear, the reporting period for this is April of 2026 to June of 2026. So if there were no complaints received from that zip code within that time period, they wouldn't show up in this report. Is that right?
Correct, right. So just to add, the PACE team is working on the annual report, so that will be from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. So that gives the overall comprehensive report of where the complaints, it will be located in that annual report, but none for the fourth quarter from one.
Anything else for legal division? Not hearing anything, I think we can move on to the next divisional update.
Kevin just participated in the divisional updates. I said I covered.
Oh, okay.
Most of
Is
them.
there a policy update?
No, I covered it. So
Got it.
yes, we didn't want to be redundant.
Oh,
So-
understood. Okay. I guess I just have a brief policy question then, I guess.
Okay.
With it. Okay. Is there a list of current policy reviews or assessments that are ongoing?
Your voice dropped. I didn't hear.
Apologies. Is there a list of current policy assessments that are pending or ongoing?
Actually, yes. We prepared a document for you. We went back to February 2026 through July 2026. And we have the total number of source of informations or SOIs that were submitted, which is 4. 2 were closed. 1 was partially completed, and 1 outstanding, awaiting clarification. So since February, the Policy and Oversight Division has submitted 4 statements to support policy research and issue briefs. As I mentioned, 2 have been completed, 1 remains partially complete, pending supplemental information, and 1 requires additional clarification before the RPD can respond, Rochester Police Department. Overall, we've experienced a pretty cooperative working relationship over these past months with the department on policy-related information requests. We continue to follow up as needed to obtain the remaining information necessary to complete our policy reviews and recommendations. And just to reiterate, timely access remains important to ensuring that we can complete our work and to make sure that it's both comprehensive and informed.
Okay. And do we know the general topics of those policy assessments that are ongoing? And I think I see Ashley nodding, so I don't know if
AI, language access, and language access follow-up. And I'll be sending this in the Friday letter so
Thank
the entire board can see it. But I knew that that was something that was of interest to you, AJ, when we met for board officers, so came prepared with that.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for policy?
I don't know if this is policy or not, but the Locals Club just did their collective bargaining with the city council, right, and the mayor. So do we know anything about what was settled there? I don't know if this is the time to do it or wherever, but do anybody know anything about that? In the wind.
So I will say, if this relates to the collective bargaining agreement between the Locust Club and the city, I think that might make sense to talk about in executive session,
Okay, that's my
insofar as
que-
it relates
that's
to
my
the
question.
ongoing
Okay,
litigation.
because we need to know.
I wasn't aware that there were any such
I
negotiations,
heard it,
but if
I'm,
there are,
I'm
we should
not
talk
being
about
funny.
that.
I heard it. You know how you could talk. I heard it in the wind.
Yeah, well, because
Okay.
they settled their contract
Oh, they did.
already, so unless they're starting negotiations again, it'd be kind of early. I
So
think
when
it
did
was,
they settle the contract? That's what I'm saying. Was it recently?
It's from
like last
2024 to
20
2028.
Yeah, they
It
settled it in
expires June 30th,
2024.
28.
well, it was actually took longer. It was back to 2020. I think it was last year they settled it.
week? When?
Like last year, I think.
Last year?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. They're not negotiating at this moment. I mean, there might be maybe there's other. I mean, maybe we should talk in executive session because if it has
Okay.
to do with the
All
lawsuit.
right. Okay.
But the contract itself is through 2028. I mean, I think we expressed a disappointment that there wasn't more of a push for the negotiations to reflect what was in the charter.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we talked about last year, and that's up to council and the mayor when those negotiations happen. You know, whatever emphasis they add on that, but the contract is through 2028.
Okay. So, but it's already settled. Wasn't done last month. It was done in 2020.
No.
Okay. So I got some late wind. But anyway,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other division-related questions? Okay. Not hearing anything, I think we can move on. So next on the agenda is the chairperson's report. I was actually going to talk about Syracuse CRB and some of the stuff in that report, but we sort of have already discussed that. So I will save you the burden of having to listen to me ramble on about Syracuse CRB more. And I think we can move right along to committee reports. So you will have to listen to me ramble on about the Legislative Affairs Committee, though. So I'd be happy to provide an update on the Legislative Affairs Committee. As Kevin mentioned earlier, we had our first meeting earlier this week. It's sort of an organizational meeting. At that meeting, we discussed the fact that we had received several communities to us with interest in the committee. So we thought maybe and to that end, Kevin mentioned he proposed I think section of the meeting, I think it might make sense, at that time, I can move to empower the legislative committee to develop this develop and implement the application process. We can wait to vote on that till we get to that section of the agenda tonight. Just wanted to mention that work has been done, and that's something we were discussing at the committee meeting. I'll also mention I've been having some really interesting conversations with folks about this issue, including folks from the Office of the Attorney General and others about how to get this moving. So really excited about this work. We've also received a nomination from the Alliance nominating Pastor Wanda Wilson to sit on the Legislative Affairs Committee. Again, we can discuss that when we get to the new business portion, when we can think about voting. But again, just wanted to mention it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think those are the main updates I wanted to provide about the Legislative Committee. I already mentioned the link with Syracuse and how this is, again, bigger than a Rochester issue. It's wider than that. as we see in Syracuse. Larry, you were also at the Legislative Affairs Committee meeting. Is there anything you'd like to add?
It's on the third floor of the building, so definitely it's a maze to get there. So if you're coming to the next meeting, if you haven't been there before, definitely get to the Letter Scott building early. I will say that I'm really happy that we're starting this process. And again, seeing what's going on in Syracuse, knowing that right now in New York City and Rochester, like kind of the front runners, and other places want to get to where we are or back to where we were. And legislative, we have the legal process, like we know, but that legislative process is also very important. And what happened in Syracuse really bothers me, and I think it should bother the community, because they were whatever decision-making process happened there, they use what happened here as an excuse to take away something that another community fought for. And as we see across this country with the rollbacks of civilian oversight of law enforcement, that happening here in New York, and us being able to prevent that is really important. And this legislative process is one avenue to do that. Talking to our state legislators, which we're going to do increasingly, I think is an important process. But just the importance of our work and what we built, and seeing people trying to attack it in other places now, I think this kind of reinforces the importance of this process and this committee and other communities, hopefully engaging with us as they see us moving this legislatively, because our proposed legislation affects just Rochester. Other communities can do the same thing, and having other community groups and other boards supporting us as we move forward, I think will be really important in this process that we have with the committee. Will help showcase that work. So I'm glad we're doing it.
Can I ask a question there? Okay, what we're trying to get is the state to write legislation, correct, for all across New York State to have the right to PAB boards or community, whatever they call. Yeah. Is that what we're doing, or we just, could that be part of it?
Our legislation we have would just be Rochester specific. Passing something statewide, that's a much bigger lift. That with the time frame that we're working on here, I think we came to a conclusion as a board and allies that we want to get Rochester set, and that's why the legislation is specific to Rochester. If you're trying to pass something statewide, that's something I think the consortium can work on, but that's a much harder process getting electeds that represent other communities to agree to this. But working with our electeds, and we're passing something that in the state legislature that affects just one area of the state, and as long as the legislators in that area of the state are in support of that, it's more likely to get through the legislature quicker. Not a promise, obviously, because it's New York State government, but that's why we're not doing things statewide. But there is legislation, for instance, in New York City to do more with their accountability, with their civilian review board that they've been sponsoring for a while, and hopefully there's other parts of the state where legislators will take the lead like we have here and sponsor things for their parts of the state. But right now we're just concentrating on Rochester.
Thank you.
I'll mention theoretically depending on the interest of the state legislature in how the geographic scope. There's different options, right, for the geographic scope. Could certainly be just Rochester. There's a particularly compelling argument for Rochester because of the referendum vote that overwhelmingly supported PAB here. Another option, obviously, you could do it statewide. That would allow, for example, Syracuse to be able to have these same powers, and all other municipalities across the state would have the option to have some of the powers we have here in Rochester. And then the third sort of middle ground option is an opt-in model, similar to the good cause eviction legislation, which some people might be familiar with, but basically the idea would be the state law would allow local municipalities to opt in to these sort of powers if they want them in their. That would be sort of a middle ground between just Rochester and statewide. So I just want to point out there are multiple options for what the state legislators could do with this legislation, depending on what geographic scope they're in.
Also, AJ, I know we're talking about Syracuse, but I read another article that indicated Buffalo is trying to get a police accountability board for the ballot for vote, and they're using the rationale that the Buffalo Police Department overrun their cost budget for litigation. I think last year was like $3 million, and so they're trying to use the cost method. Are we looking at that also? The fact that the savings from having an accountability board?
Absolutely. I think that's a really important topic. I know there has been research on that issue here in Rochester. That was part of the campaign to get the PAB established. One of the things we found is looking at a relatively small, I think it was like a 2-year period, the city of Rochester had paid out something like several million, I think it was like $3 million in settlements over police misconduct lawsuits. So in that way, if you can prevent that kind of misconduct from happening, an accountability agency can pay for itself. By preventing the city from having to pay out all those settlements or reduce their insurance rate, cover the possibility of that kind of liability. So, yeah, I think that's a really important issue. There is some research that's been done in Rochester, but that research should continue to evaluate the cost that police misconduct poses on the community.
To both of your points, I think that report that we have actually did a lot of research to include our counterparts like Buffalo and Syracuse, and so there was some really good data and information that they could definitely use as a jumping off point if they don't have that already.
Okay, anything else about legislative affairs? All right, not hearing anything, we can move on to training.
Okay, great. The training committee did meet on July 20th. And we met for two major reasons. One was to review, revise, or approve the dashboard for board training. And I have to say that the administration did a great job in developing the dashboard. Dolores, Leslie, outstanding job. So when Larry and I met, we felt that. And hopefully all of you have had a chance to look at the dashboard, because I know a copy was sent out so you could review it. And so hopefully there are no questions, but if there are, Larry and I'll be happy to take any questions you may have. But the second part was NACO had come out with this list of trainings. And along with staff, Larry and I went through and we identified the trainings that we should take as a board this fiscal year. While we can't mandate the trainings, I mean, we feel that the trainings are very much in line with where we are and the situation we're in as far as the legal situation and the like. So we selected trainings, and you have a listing of those trainings in your packets also. Now, there are additional NACO trainings that are being offered. So if anyone sees anything in addition they would like to take, just give Dr. Myra Smalls a call, and we'll make sure that we get that on the agenda for you, because I think there is a small fee for these. Yeah, it's very, very small. But if you see something that you're interested in addition to the 6 trainings that are listed, just let us know, and we'll make sure that that happens. Also wanted to indicate that as a committee, we decided that we would meet the last Thursday of the months that are listed on the schedule. And we decided on the last Thursday because that way it'll be fresh. It'll be a week before we meet for our full board meeting on the first Thursday of the month. And so I say that to say that if there's any suggestions you have, any ideas, any additions, any discussion, you could call Larry or myself, and we'll be glad to have that discussion with you. Otherwise, we do plan on moving forward with the training agenda. We talked about a schedule, and what we would like to do. I'll make sure you get it. We'll make sure. What we want to do is make sure that the schedules are completed within 10 business days. So we're hoping, that everyone agrees and everyone, go through the trainings that we have. It should be in your package. You start with dynamic. It's not in the packets? Oh, okay.
So in the packet, you should only have the NACO training sessions, the 6 training sessions, but not the dates.
I don't know if I have
It's
that.
not in our packet.
The 6 trainings?
It should say contracted NACO training sessions.
We'll make
If
sure.
not,
some of us don't have that.
Okay, I'll email it to you all.
Thank you.
And we can go over the 6 trainings. The first one is group dynamics and processes. The second one is principles of effective oversight. Third one is identifying and addressing challenges and opportunities. The fourth is legislation, which I'm sure you're going to be very much involved in, AJ, you and Larry. Fifth is cognitive and implicit biases and oversight. And the last one is reviewing and understanding data. Now, you may not have the listing, but I think you have a description of all those in the packet, correct?
Yeah.
So the descriptions will give you a little bit of an insight of those trainings. And as we indicated, once we schedule them, we would really like everyone to complete them within 10 business days. Going through my list, making sure I did not forget anything. And, well, that's basically it for the training. But as I indicated, Larry and I both are available for any questions you may have and any additional trainings you may need. The only other thing that I wanted to indicate, these are the board-recommended trainings. There will be some city mandatory trainings that you have to take, such as the IT security we had to take last year. So any mandated training will be in addition to the 6 suggested trainings we have here for the new fiscal year. Yes.
The question I have is, so the training is offered on the last Thursday of each month, beginning at 5:30, and I'm assuming it's a Zoom thing?
We had the discussion, and it will be Zoom. It will be Zoom, and that was one of the things we probably have to get better clarification on, because basically I was thinking that the training committee meeting would be last Thursday at 5:30 as opposed to the training. Because we want to offer that 10 business day spread.
I can verify that, but also if you're not available to train at that time, they're recorded, so you would be able
That's
to
what
view
I
them.
want to know,
The
because
recording, yes.
telling me a set date may change for my circumstances. I'm just speaking for myself.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to give 10 business days so that you have that flexibility. And Larry has indicated he's going to be a strict enforcer, so you don't want to get a call from him. No,
Also, I want to add that you all should have received an invitation for the dashboard. It would have come through your City of Rochester email. Luan Vu, who is our webmaster, will also provide a training to help you navigate the system. And if you're not available during that time, that also will be recorded so you can view it at any time. And there will also be documentation to guide you through the dashboard as well.
Leslie, did you want to say something?
I did. I just wanted, thank you for that training update. I just wanted to add that I wanted to give credit where credit is due. Luan Vu, our webmaster, is the one who developed the dashboard for the board. And one of the things with that dashboard, it will keep you honest because board members have access to see what other board members, which trainings they have. It's open access, so just a FYI.
Okay. Anything else on training?
No, that completes our report, unless Larry had something.
Okay. Youth and community engagement.
Yeah, we don't have too much of an update. I know we've been struggling coordinating our summer schedules, but Board Member Wilson, hopefully we can meet together, Board Member Wilson, after the board meeting so we can schedule our August meeting. But also another thing is we do need to reconvene to make sure we're adhering to the open meeting laws for that next subcommittee.
I can't meet after the meeting because I got somewhere to be.
Oh, just like really quick.
Right now.
Okay, then I'll communicate with you how we will plan our next meetings. 'Cause I'd like to get that on the calendar so we can make sure that we're informing the public of when that subcommittee is meeting.
All right. Is there any old business we need to? Do you have a Before we get into new business, which we're going to be getting into in a moment here, I just wanted to point out that our board member Arlene Brown is not here tonight, but she's been excused. Do we know there's a reason she's not here? I don't know. Okay, so just mentioning that she's not here. Just want to reflect that for the record. Okay, for new business, there was a couple things I wanted to mention. So the first is I would move to empower the Legislative Affairs Committee to develop and implement an application process for community members. This will sort of dovetail and allow us to make official the nomination form that Kevin has developed. I mean, if we wanted to make changes to it, we could, but that sort of thing. So I'm moving to empower the Legislative Affairs Committee to develop and implement an application process for community members. Is there a second?
I'm sorry, I got a question about that.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry.
We can have an opportunity for discussion. So I saw a second, but before we get to a vote, yeah, do you want to have a discussion? Yeah, so what would you like to say?
Okay. I heard that you said someone nominated Pastor Wanda Wilson as the PABA nominee.
Correct.
So my question is, right, are we treating the PABA as just another community member, or do they have a right to be on part of the legislation? I brought this up last time we met.
That was going to be the next topic I was going to bring up right after this.
Oh, okay.
So we would have an opportunity to discuss
Okay.
that and vote on that as a board.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So with respect to empowering the Legislative Affairs Committee to develop and implement an application process for community members, who would vote in favor of that? Favor of this over here? Okay. Needs to be unanimous, so that resolution passes. Okay. Now, to Board Member Wilson's point and to the nomination that we received from the Police Accountability Alliance, nominating Pastor Wanda Wilson to join the Legislative Affairs Committee, I would move to appoint their nomination to the Legislative Affairs. Second for that.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, who votes in favor of allowing Pastor Wanda Wilson to join the Legislative Affairs Committee? Unanimous. Congratulations, you are on the Legislative Affairs Committee. Okay, any other new business? Hearing none.
Don't forget about the conversation relative to NACOL, or are you good? Conference.
Yeah.
You're
so
good?
I think we're
Okay,
good.
all right.
Yep. Yeah, just for clarity, there has been some discussion about sending some board members to the NACOL conference coming up in Louisville in a few months. So that is something we're currently trying to figure out of which board members might be interested and available to attend that conference. We're still in the process of working all that out, but that is what we're hoping to do. Some board members, at least, are hoping to go to that NACOL conference. Okay. If that is the end of new business, is there would anyone like to move to go into executive session? And without disclosing any confidential details, what is the general that you would like to discuss? Litigation or personnel matters or something? Okay. I second. Vote to go into executive session. You all voting to go into executive session? Kathy? Are you voting to go into executive session? I think it's unanimous. Thank you. Do we know is Yvonne coming back up? She's gone. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thankfully, we have enough of us to close up. Okay, folks, we are back from executive session. We did not take any votes, and I am moving to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second? Vote. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.